The call of the Hogs can be heard all the way to San Francisco.
You're listening to Pod at the Palace with Curtis Wilkerson on Inside Arkansas.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day, and welcome back to the Pod at the Palace. I'm your host, Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas. Today's episode is presented by Rowback Apparel. Go to rowback.com and use code HOGSBY20 for 20% off your first purchase today. Hey, before we get started today, a heads up to you guys. Wednesday night, tonight, 8 p.m. Central Time, we're going to be doing a members-only stream, our Inside Arkansas YouTube channel. That's right. If you bought into a membership with us on YouTube, and we sure do appreciate you, we want to pay it forward and give you guys a little bit of an exclusive there. So Andrew Ellis and I, as John Neighbors is out there at SEC Media Day, and so we haven't been on Inside Arkansas Live as much as we normally would. So me and Andrew are going to team up, go live at 8 o'clock, and do a members-only stream. It's a full-on AMA, like Ask Me Anything, Ask Andrew Anything, exclusive to our members who can get in there in the chat. Basketball, recruiting, baseball, the draft, football, life, making fun of John Neighbors, anything that you guys want to know, hop in there and we'll carry on the conversation, have a lot of fun with it. We're also going to be doing a giveaway, several giveaways, actually. We got a lot of Inside Arkansas merch that we're going to be giving away. We got Alumni Hall gift cards. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you are a member and you can't join us live tomorrow at 8 o'clock, you got something going on, that's okay. The stream is going to be scheduled in advance, so you can hop in there and get your questions into the chat early. We'll make sure we get to them. Or hit me up on Twitter at @KurtWilkerson_. You can throw me a DM with your question, or shoot me an email, curtis@insidearkansas.com. Don't send me anything weird. Whatever questions and topics, though, that interest you, we'll make sure we get to them. Should be fun. If you aren't a member and you want to be, you want to know more about it, all you have to do is hop on your computer. I don't think you can do this by phone, we've learned, but hop on your laptop, computer, whatever, go to the Inside Arkansas YouTube page. You're going to see a button there that says subscribe. Click it, and that gets you started. That's all you got to do. So wanted to plug that real quick. We're looking forward to it. Going to be fun. Might get off the rails a little bit. That's what happens when it's me and Andrew, but it's a good time. We'll see you there. Okay. The recruiting theme continues today on the Pod at the Palace. I hope that's all right. The views have been strong because I think you guys like it, and that's cool. But it's not just more of the same. We are going to take a little bit of a turn towards transfer recruiting today after John Calipari gave us his unfiltered thoughts on it during his press conference last week. And then also, just kind of given where things might be headed in terms of this roster and, an ever-changing landscape as it pertains to recruiting, some of the stuff we talked about yesterday, the last couple of days. And it's easy to live by that 4-4-2 model where I'm going to have this many returners, this many freshmen, this many transfers, whatever. But does anything ever really go according to plan? So wanted to dive into that a little bit. It was kind of funny. Somebody in the comments, took exception to me mentioning when Cal had that number one freshman recruiting class in 2020 and that team at Kentucky wound up sucking. It was quick to point that out, just kind of, cherry pick that example a little bit. Just to remind me that freshmen aren't conducive to winning. The number one recruiting class doesn't mean you're going to win, right? You can sign the top class, and it could mean nothing more than just it's something to talk about. And all right, I get it. And I responded playfully and was like, buddy, it's mid-July, man. Like, giving you guys something to talk about, that's kind of the point with where we're at right now in the offseason. But it was funny because then when I got to thinking about it a little bit afterwards, and I was prepping for today's show, and I knew what I was going to talk about today. And so I'm thinking, for Yabba Dabba Doo or whatever his name was there in the comments, boy, he's really going to have some thoughts on this one, I would imagine. That's all right. I like it. It's good stuff, good banter. For what it's worth, I don't disagree with the broad statement that freshmen don't, win you championships, with where the game is headed. But that conversation is much more nuanced than that, isn't it? At Arkansas and with Cal. And yesterday was just it was a hot take Tuesday, right? Like, hey, the Hogs they're gonna have the number one signing class. I didn't say they were gonna have the number one signing class and win a national championship. I didn't say they were gonna have the number one signing class, and they weren't gonna have anything else on their roster besides said signing class. No, it's not that at all. And had I just said, oh, well, Cal had the number one class in 2020 and moved on, somebody would have immediately been in the comments pointing out that team sucked. I just wanted to add the context to that. Now, That was also post-COVID. There was no summer practice for those guys to get acclimated. Things were abbreviated. Offseason returned on their head. That was a weird year for everybody. But those guys clearly weren't ready that year over there. And they didn't have much help either. Like the rest of that group kind of stunk too. Just wasn't a good team. Happens. Not very often with Cal. In fact, it's the worst season he's ever had. But, if John Calipari was still doing the thing where he flipped his entire roster on an annual basis and was taking these crazy large freshman classes, I would share some of that concern, I think. But, part of what I pointed out there with Cal was that he's been pretty transparent in saying, hey, I know I can't do the 6-7 freshman thing anymore. Like the game is just getting older, can't be over reliant. And those are all things that you wanted to hear. And you just wondered if he was going to follow through on that. And well, in his first full cycle, he kind of has. And so, that means what? Like if you won't be overly reliant on young, inexperienced players, then one of two things has to happen. Like you either have to have plenty back in the cupboard or you got to go out and get a bunch of older guys. So, and I think they've got a nice mix right now for the first time in Cal's career, or at least since he got to Kentucky and started really doing that one and done thing. He's putting more of an emphasis and, on balance with his roster construction. And he said in the past, like he doesn't like have a set style or a set system that he likes to implement, basically because he just accumulates talent and sees what that identity should be. And he kind of molds his team around that. That's what he says, at least. But he definitely had an eye on how he was constructing the roster this year. And, some that were out there were pointing to, well, look at Florida and Houston from the championship game last year. They didn't have all these 5-star freshmen or whatever. And no, like the key ingredient for them was retention. Arkansas has that. So check, right? But I also, like, we can't ignore Duke being reliant on having the number one high school class last year. They won the ACC regular season. They won the ACC conference tournament title, and they advanced to a Final Four. And they were, like one play away from getting to a title game there. So freshmen can win at a high level, but it's nice to have a little bit of everything, isn't it? Like the ingredients are there. Do you look at this Arkansas roster? I'm not accusing anybody of saying that, but I'm just pointing it out. Does anybody look at this roster for Arkansas and think that they're too reliant on one particular thing this year? Like too much by way of freshmen? Are they overdoing it with the returners? Is it too much with the transfers? It seems like a pretty good balance to me for the most part. And it looks like Cal prefers to keep it that way. And so that's great. Now, with that being said, though, and kind of parlaying into some of the stuff I wanted to talk about, the conditions were just right. It feels like this year with how it all worked out. Right? Because here's where I can see it being a little bit tricky in the future. Not right now, the plan is to have, the bulk of the roster, for the most part, contributors at least, be returners and freshmen, really good freshmen. A couple transfers sprinkled in. But my question, what I'm wondering about is what happens if and when John Calipari gets back to a typical John Calipari year, which means he has multiple guys drafted. And then all of a sudden that crop of returners coming back, it's either not as big or it's not as talented. Because that's been the case for him in the past. Like this is arguably, last year was one of the least talented teams that he's had in terms of NBA talent. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about it and what that might mean here in a few minutes. But first, I want to take a moment to tell you guys about our sponsors for today over at Looper Auction and Realty. That's Freedom Boat Club. Listen, Freedom Boat Club is our sponsor tomorrow. We'll get to them. You guys know the drill. It's summertime. Get out there on the lake, or you're trying to get rid of your house. Some people are in that boat right now. Why wait months or even years? Have you guys been through that process before? It's brutal, man. I've done it. I've done the thing where you're selling and buying at the same time, and your purchase is contingent on the sale. The whole thing is it's a mess. It's complicated. It's frustrating. It's stressful. And it can take a lot of time. So why wait to sell your home the traditional way? At Looper Auction and Realty, they offer a faster, smarter option. Sell your home at an auction. You have to worry about repairs, no contingencies, none of these drawn out negotiations, the back and forth. You set the terms, buyers compete, and you walk away with a firm closing date. Whether it's your home, an estate, or an investment property, the auction method puts you in control and helps you get it sold fast. So call Looper Auction and Realty today, 479-996-4848, or visit looperauction.com. Looper Auction and Realty, sold in 30, closed in 30. Okay, so back to the point, we were kind of, I feel like, spoiled a little bit this season with the returners that Arkansas has. 45% of the scoring back, 4 contributors off of that Sweet 16 team. You guys know the drill. We talk about it every day. But that's atypical of Cal's teams, and I'm not sure it's something that we can or that we should expect on an annual basis. I'm not talking about 4 returners, but I'm talking about 4 returners like what you have, right? Like, I don't know that Arkansas is going to be able to regularly count on returning guys who contributed to the cause the previous year in the manner that DJ Wagner and Carter Knox and Billy Richmond and Trevin Brazile did. I hope you do. And heck, if you come close to that, you're going to be in a pretty good spot. But Arkansas had 1 draft pick this year. 1. Now, I think we went into the year, or at least I did, thinking most likely that it was going to be probably a Dude Thero and then Boogie would be the only 2. Of course, Boogie's at Florida now, but he's not with the team anymore. But those were kind of the 2 that I looked at and thought, okay, they'll probably get drafted. Outside of that, talented team, everybody's got a chance, but, So I just have a feeling that's going to change. Knowing Cal, knowing how he operates, knowing what this team looks like, it's not far-fetched at all, in my opinion, to see a world where anywhere between 3 to 5 guys get drafted off of this team next year. They're good. They really are. Of course, a couple are going to run out of eligibility anyway, and Trevin Brazile and Nick Pringle, so you have to count and take that into account as well. But this is kind of more in line, I think, with what you're going to get with Cal. So again, in theory, like you're not having the crazy roster turnover anymore that he used to. Like you were learning an entirely new team from year to year over there at Kentucky. But that wasn't happening with Cal before because kids were leaving him, dipping out, going to another school. They were going to the league because of the way that he recruits. And we know exactly how John Calipari feels about helping families, right? When it comes to that matter. So I think that returning 4 guys is easy to take into account numerically. Like that, they'll have 4 guys that they can return, but will it always be the right 4? Will it be 4 who started for you or contributed in the way that these guys did or profile the way that these guys do? I don't know. Probably not. If we're really being honest here, year to year. Best case going into next season, yeah, it could be really good again. It could. It could work out. DJ could be back. Why not? 4th year, that'd be awesome. Malik Thomas, people think he might need more than a year. I personally think he's a one and done, but not the craziest thing in the world. So maybe him or Billy could be back. Could be both. I don't know. Isaiah Sealy probably back. Okay, cool. Hopefully Malik Ewan. Although he's knocking down threes and showing off them point forward skills, he could really work himself into something. And then, the other like Paolo Smito, Elmer Zafich. Okay. Like if you wind up getting all those guys or most of those guys back, that'd be awesome, man. It really would. It'd be sick. But there's also a very real world out there where most of those guys are out of here. Especially, I think if this team winds up being what we think it will, it's because all these guys hit and they popped and they really performed. They got themselves on draft boards, and there you have it. And so this is what will be most fascinating to me if that happens. Because for starters, Cal it seems like he's building what almost is, it's kind of like a farm system, but it's on your roster. Like the developmental wing of the roster, Paolo Smito, Elmer Zafich, Kareem Rattel, potentially, another addition there as he's alluded to. But does that mean he's going to be comfortable? Let's say he loses a bulk of the guys we just talked about. Is he going to be comfortable plugging and playing all these other guys next year if your studs dip out? I don't know, man. To a degree, sure. Like, especially a guy with like Paolo's upside, sure. But by and large, I would imagine he won't just be sliding the scout team up to be major contributors right away. I don't see that being the case. Maybe an increased role, maybe one or two of them you feel really good about that you can slide in there into the rotation. But I don't think it's going to be just like the hockey line changes there. So then the question I think becomes, all right, well, you didn't get the amount of retention in terms of quantity or quality or both, because your team was so good, right? And you got guys going pro or whatever, in addition to losing eligibility. So does he go deeper with his incoming freshman class, or does he increase his commitment to transfers, which he seems hesitant to do? And so yesterday on the show, we talked about how, a lot of coaches, they're having to make up that it's like a decision, a conundrum, if you will. Like, do we hold on to our money and wait it out until the offseason? Or do we spend on all these freshmen now? And then we might be, a little bit a little bit high and dry there in the portal, depending on how things go. And then in turn, a lot of these high school seniors, certainly more of them than in the past, like they might opt to do the same thing. Instead of committing and signing in November or whatever, they're thinking, I don't know, man, maybe if I wait until the late period in the spring, and all of a sudden, these teams, they've got guys hitting the draft, other guys hitting the portal or whatever, I might be able to get a bigger payday by doing that. So which way does he go? Personally, and I think I speak for the majority here, my hope would be that rather than taking an extra freshman or two and getting back in that territory of, 7-man freshman classes that you're leaning on, I would opt for him to go with experience and the transfers if you were put in that situation. Now, he's already indicated otherwise. Like, I remember the quote we played yesterday where he said, I'm still going to get my freshmen and returners and then maybe a transfer or two, maybe. Like, he double maybe'd the transfer thing. But he also said, and he was very transparent there, and he was like, hey, with the changing landscape, I reserve the right to change my mind. Like, we might get into this with the revenue share and how everything's changing. I might decide I don't like it and I need to adjust. This could potentially be a year where he needs to adjust. Honestly, we'll see what it looks like. But what fascinates me about it is I read a story before I started recording at ESPN.com this morning with a bunch of takeaways from the NBA Summer League. And towards the bottom, one of the biggest ones, there's a long excerpt on it, was that NBA execs are down, to put it mildly, on the 2026 recruiting class, and just a lack of star power and a lack of impact there. So I actually screen grabbed it. So I want to pull this up and you guys can read it. I'm going to read it out loud for those in podcast version, but this comes from ESPN and just the conversations they've been having at Summer League with NBA execs as it pertains to the 2026 recruiting class. It says the most forward thinking of these executives are already ringing alarm bells in their front offices for the 2027 NBA draft, which appears to be an especially weak group of rising high school seniors and international players born in 2007 and 2008. This is one of the weakest high school classes I've seen in a long time, one grizzled talent evaluator with extensive experience in the amateur youth space told ESPN. There might not be a single all-star in this group, and after the first few prospects, I'm not sure how many NBA starters I see either from the other 5-star recruits. New players always emerge, but by now we usually have a pretty good idea of who the most elite prospects are, and it's looking like slim pickings, even more so than the weak 2024 NBA draft, which at least had several high-end international prospects we could point to. College coaches making the rounds at Summer League have echoed similar thoughts, saying they've been largely underwhelmed by the lack of star power among prospects ranked at the top of the 2026 recruiting class. This is causing them to plan on being even more aggressive in the transfer portal rather than spending significant sums on 5-star freshmen. Okay. Do you guys think that John Calipari falls in the camp of the college coaches referenced at the end there? I doubt it, if I'm being honest. But in a more, I guess in a nicer way, he kind of called that shot the other day when he's saying that a lot of schools are just going to wait. Now, what I will say, let's say Arkansas, we did that hypothetical class yesterday, And if they finished with 4 top 15 type guys in this class, which is very much on the table, they're all guys who can come in and make an impact right away. Like the top of any class is going to be able to make an impact. There's no doubt about that. But if this is not as good of a class, that, I think it kind of generates a little bit more buzz for these schools waiting and being a little bit heavier in the transfer portal because they feel like it can help them separate a little bit more. So there's that. But it's pretty clear that this class is not expected to make the same level of impact overall as the last couple. So if you didn't have the amount of retention that you had this past year, maybe that 1 or 2 transfers maybe becomes 3. Like, do you take an extra one there? It will give us more to be excited about in the offseason, at least. I think that's true. And for what it's worth, I do want to point out, though, that John Calipari, he's not anti-transfer. That's not the case at all. I think he's more anti the system that has enabled nonstop and unregulated transfers and how it impacts some of these kids. I think the best way to put it would be if you had a totem pole of ways to build a roster, transfers would be at the bottom for Cal, although he understands that it's a necessary evil. I want to pull up and we'll listen to a little bit of Cal. He had a lengthy rant about this. He got in a soapbox and he was talking about the transfer portal and how they need to get this all figured out. We'll play it and we'll talk about a little bit of it, and then we'll move on and we'll wrap up the show. So let me pull it up here. Okay.
To get in check is the transfer rules. I think kids should be able to transfer. I don't have any issue with that. Once, without penalty.
I don't hate this, honestly. You get 1 free transfer. I like that. I think it's fair. Sometimes you need to change, whatever. And outside of that, I think they used to have the deal where also if you're a grad transfer. So then it's like, okay, maybe you transferred once before, but then you fulfill your academic requirements and you graduate, so you're not kind of screwing yourself over academically. All right, sure. Transfer again. That's kind of where I'm at with it, personally.
Whatever happened, the coach said something, he lied to you, good, leave. You don't have to. You picked the wrong school. He picked the wrong guy, leave. If the coach leaves and goes to another school, you should be able to leave because we can all say what we want. They went to the school because of the coach. Now, does that make you mad? You could be sad, mad, peed on, peed off. That's a fact. That's why they go to the school for that. So if he leaves and you want to leave, if you want to stay, stay. If you want to leave, you leave. Other than that, sit out a year. Because, do you mind me being on the soapbox for a minute? If they transfer to 4 different schools, why are they transferring 4 times? Do this with me. Can you do that with me? Okay? That's why they're doing it. Can they graduate?
I think he does raise a fair and valid point. It just feel like free agency here with like kids who are staying in college for basketball for 4 years. Why are they doing that? Well, they typically aren't big NBA prospects, or they would have gone to the draft by now. So for whatever reason, that's not really a thing for them. So in a vacuum or immediately, they're hitting the open market every year for a quick payday to maximize that, which I don't necessarily blame them, but it does come at the expense of a degree. And so what Cal's getting at here is like, okay, well, what about life after that? Because if you're still here, what does this really look like for you as a professional making money playing basketball? And so, yeah, you've been able to maximize, throughout your time in college here, but then what?
From the last school, if they transferred 4 times. So when they're out of school and they're done playing, okay, if we care about kids, no college education, they go for a job, they're offered $55,000 to start, and what do they say? What? I was making $250. Do I have to go to work? Do you get me a car? Can I have an apartment? Okay. All I know is when you go from poor to having some money back to poor, now we're talking mental health issues. We got stuff where, look, It is fair and it is right. Transfer without penalty one time. If you want to transfer, I'm all for it. But you got to sit out.
Yeah, and again, like, this is not Cal being anti-transfer. He really, I think, went out of his way to make that point a number of times. And it's also worth noting this exact scenario that he outlined here with with guys going to 4 different schools, transferring to 4 different schools and all that. It represents a guy he literally just took. Nick Pringle started at Wofford, then he was at Alabama, then he was at South Carolina, and now he's finishing at Arkansas. So just because you don't agree with something doesn't mean you can't take advantage of it when it benefits you. Am I right? So understand that.
Because we care enough about education. When you leave, you have a college degree. If it didn't work out for sports, you can work and do fine. The other thing, your own child, every time he faces adversity, do you want him to run or do you want him to dig in his heels and fight? Well, I'm not starting anymore. Well, then work harder than him. Go take it back. So I think 70% of our issues are transfers. That's the policy we have right now. 70%. If we get that cleaned up, the rest of it, the money and all the other stuff will come in. It'll be different. But we got to get that fixed. And I'm just telling you, I'm not against transfers, but I just know this. If you're telling me it's good for a kid to transfer 4 times, be done playing, have no college degree, what did he learn? What did we teach as educators? Me. What did I teach? First time, just run. Go to the next one, try to do this, go to the next. And they could say, well, you leave when you want. I'd have to pay my way out. And I went 8 years at one school. I went 9 years at another school. I went 15 years at another school. And I'm here for 12 years, I think. There's no way I'll be here 12 years.
Wow. Dang, Coach Cal, you're not going to hang out with us for 12 years? You don't want to be coaching in Arkansas in 2036? That's crazy, man. Can't believe this. Unreal. All kidding aside, he had more to say there, but it was a long clip, so I don't want to go too far into it. But we got the point across there of kind of where he stands on all that. And I get it. I think a lot of things that he said, are correct there. So at any rate, I think as excited as we are for the upcoming season, and we should be, because I think this team is really good and it's going to be a blast. I'm truly fascinated to see how things unfold on the roster and the recruiting front for the next squad. I mean, just like with Trevin and Pringle both out of eligibility, those are 2 guys we know for sure. I mean, you're replacing at least one starter in the front court. The front court where Cal said he likes to get his bigs from the portal because they're older and more physical. And, there's a world too. Like if Malik Ewan balls out, then all 3 of your rotation front court guys are out of here. And you're looking at it next year going, all right, Paolo, Elmer, whoever they wind up getting in the, in the freshman class, I bet they're going to go out and get some adults. I just have a feeling that's going to be the case. But what if your freshman guards are one and done and Carter goes and gets drafted in the first round as expected? And what if you don't get that security blanket back in DJ Wagner for your backcourt with whatever freshman guard you have coming in here? Will Cal go more transfer heavy? Could you guys see a world where John Calipari added 4 transfers to a roster? Because if you'd asked me that before I rambled and talked myself through all this, I would have said, hell no, ain't no way. But the more I think about it, it's a really good year, and a bunch of these guys go to the draft and whatever. Might not be that crazy. I guess we'll find out when we get there. But anyway, that'll do. I'm out. I'm out of ammo for the day. But good conversation. Just some thought-provoking stuff, I guess you could say, here in the middle of July. We'll see what happens. And hey, by the way, Peach Jam is rolling. Now the coaches can't get out there. I think the 17th, either the 17th or the 18th is when the live evaluation period opens back up through the end of the weekend, and coaches can get back out there front and center. But Peach Jam, it's getting rolling here. In fact, it is. So we'll keep an eye on all these prospects on the EYBL. And Arkansas is active with the Adidas. They're done. But all these guys, Tyron Stokes, Jordan Smith Jr., every one of these dudes who's been out there on the EYBL. JJ is going to be playing again. We'll keep a very close eye on them and who Cal's prioritizing. It's the last live evaluation period of the summer here, and then it's visits, right? And we'll see what these guys do in terms of when they want to make decisions. Do they pop quick or do they wait? Like we anticipate some of them might wind up doing. Be on the lookout for that as well. Tap into our members-only stream tonight at 8 o'clock. If you want some more tidbits, insider stuff on any of these basketball recruits, we can talk about them. Any fun transfer portal stories, Musselman memories. You want us to make fun of John Neighbors, become a member, hop in 8 o'clock Inside Arkansas YouTube channel. We're really looking forward to that. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Find us where you find your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Amazon. The Pot the Palace is there. Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas. Appreciate you guys. I'll see most of you tonight, I hope. If not, I'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Y'all have a good one.